Simple. Check that LIBOR rate I mentioned and check that Treasury bill rate. If they're moving closer together, it's a good day. If they're moving further apart, it's a bad day, period. You don't need to look at anything else. Now, they've moved closer together in trend, and we're having more good days than bad right now. And what that says is, President Obama, when he signed the stimulus package, said we'd reached the beginning of the end. I'm not quite that optimistic. When I wrote my column about it a few weeks before that, I used Winston Churchill's old line from when Great Britain finally won the Battle of Egypt after all their losses to Hitler, and said we've gotten to the end of the beginning. That is, the fundamental thing that has to happen for us to recover, that is, credit has to flow, is starting to happen. Okay? It's not where it needs to be. It's got a long way to go, but it's starting to happen. and so we're at a point now where at least that fundamental force is in place, which will give us what we need to ultimately work our way through this thing. And we'll work our way through it probably faster than most people think and with more momentum than most people think. The bottom line is every recovery in the history of the world has been faster than people thought it would be. We always accelerate out of economic downturns, and when they're bad, we always think they're going to last forever. I can show you headlines from the Austin American-Statesman. When we had the real estate bust in Texas in the 80s, there was a headline in the Austin American-Statesman in 1990 that said there was a 25-year supply of office space in Austin, Texas, which meant by 2015 we might build something else. Okay. 3 years later, Austin, Texas was the #1 office market in the country. And that's because when we recover very quickly, and those things that were true during the downturn are not true during the upswing. Things start happening, and we start to gain momentum. The same thing's going to happen here. I think you'll see output, gross domestic product, our measure of the overall economy, growing by the middle of this year. I think it'll be a while longer before you see employment start to grow in a big way. And the numbers for the next couple of months are going to be brutal. There's no other way to say it. I mean, the numbers for the next couple of months are going to be pretty brutal. But we will see employment turn around probably toward the end of this year. But it's going, and then begin to gain momentum in the years beyond that. But this is a very, very difficult situation, one we haven't faced in a long time. Now, where is Texas in all this? Well, for a while, a lot of folks were saying, well, Texas is exempt from this. You know, we won't be affected by this. That's ridiculous. How many of you, and I can't see you, so you don't even have to raise your hands, but think to yourselves, how many of you have gotten a statement on your pension fund or your stocks or something else in the last few months? Okay, okay, a few of you have. I can tell by that response. Okay, how many of you, though, got one that said, okay, your stocks are down about 25%, but you're from Texas, so you get to be up 20%? Did anybody get one of those? I've said that to about 50,000 folks. I've spoken to now, and only 2 of them have said they did, and they're both friends of mine. They're both liars. So I don't, that doesn't happen. Our stock values go down. Therefore, we have less wealth. Therefore, that impacts our spending behavior. Credit is tougher to get everywhere. It's not just tougher to get in Texas. I mean, in the rest of the country, and easy in Texas. We're fortunate we have a good, strong, solid community banking system in Texas, and that really helps us. But, credit's tighter. Credit conditions are tougher. It's harder to get a mortgage. It's harder to get a small business loan. It's harder to get everything. And that's why this thing becomes so critical. I mean, during the political debates, and of course, a lot of this happened right in the middle of the presidential campaign, and that's not the best time for something like this because you get all the rhetoric involved. And right in the middle of this thing, it was like the Democrats would say, well, the Republicans just want to take care of Wall Street. We want to take care of Main Street. And the bottom line is we don't have 2 streets. Because what would happen is the problem with Wall Street, and since it was these big banks not having access to credit, but where that becomes a problem is if you take a small business here locally that's been in business for 20 years, runs a very good business, the nature of their cash flow is such that they collect money at the end of the month, they need money at the beginning of the month, so they have a credit line that gets them through. And they've done this for 20 years and it's worked just fine. If they walk in one day and the bank says, sorry, don't have any money for you this month, they're out of business. They hadn't done anything wrong. They're running the business the same way they always did. Their volume hadn't gone down. Their suppliers are the same. Their workforce is the same. But if they can't meet that payroll and pay those suppliers, they're out of business. That's why this thing has to come together. But we in Texas are fortunate to have a good community banking system. But we're feeling the effects of the credit. We are an energy state. And one of the things that happened is last summer, energy prices, oil got to $147 a barrel. That was ridiculously high based on speculation. $35 a barrel is ridiculously low based on speculation because the same speculators travel in packs. And when they decide everything's going one way, you can't hardly turn them around. When they decide it's going the other way, you can't hardly turn them around. And right now they're reacting to all this negative stuff around the world in a way they really shouldn't, and they have prices too low. That impacts Texas. So we are feeling the effects of this. Are we better positioned than most places? Absolutely. We gained about 150,000 jobs last year while the U.S. lost about 3 million. But in the last few months, we've been losing jobs, and I think you're going to see that trend for a few months here. We're going to see some job losses and then start coming back a little sooner than the nation. We'll do better than the nation because our cost is better, because our economic development programs are better, because we will be able to benefit more from global expansion, because of our role in the export part of the economy. There's all kinds of reasons why we will do better, but we still are going to have to work our way through this. Nobody gets to sit on the sidelines and say we don't want to play. You know, that's part of the process. Now, this area is very fortunate in that it has even more stability than the state as a whole. And that's because some of the industries here are very stable. They don't react as much to economic conditions. Your housing market was not overbuilt here dramatically. You're already seeing sales go up on a month-to-month basis in housing. You're already seeing people begin to build a few houses again. There's not very many places that can say that right now. And that's because you are in a very good, strong area that's got great costs, great accessibility to a lot of good markets, good core underlying industries, and those things serve you very well. So this area is going to do a little better than the state. But still, it's going to have to go through the pain. Nobody gets to just sit on the sidelines and not play. So that's kind of where we are. In an environment like this, and I want to leave as much time as I can for questions and talk about whatever you want me to talk about, but I hope I've helped you kind of understand kind of how this whole thing happened and how weird it was. In an environment like this, one of the single most important things you can do is continue very, very aggressive economic development. And the reason is there's not as many opportunities as there were. And so, you have to work hard to get them. And you want to keep yourself at the front so when the recovery starts, you're in a strong position moving forward and you haven't lost any momentum along the way. Because economic development is aggressive and it's competitive and it's difficult. And you have some great folks in both of your communities here who are leaders. I've known many of them for 20 plus years. And they're some of the best in the country. And it's very, very important that you keep those things going so that as the recovery comes, you'll do well, because there are opportunities in a downturn. One of the things they're about to do is what most people call a bad bank, something like the Resolution Trust Corporation was. They're about to sell a bunch of assets at reduced prices. Somebody's going to buy those assets and make a whole lot of money, okay? Just like they did in the 80s. Okay? You need to be positioned where you're in a position to have local people that can capitalize on that. You need to be in a position where opportunities can be